In September 2023, Ormskirk and District Family History Society reached the end of our Crowdfunding Lancashire campaign, sharing people's history of West Lancashire, and we're delighted to say that not only did we reach our fundraising target, thanks to contributions from our many supporters and members, we sailed right past it. We learnt a lot about making effective use of social media, local media, and the new monthly e-newsletter, and we also had a great day at our Family History Fund fundraiser in September that was arranged specifically to support this project. That was only the first part. Our next task was to plan, write and publish 2 short booklets, probably similar in length to our recent publication A Slice of Gingerbread, also about 20 pages in length. And so a small group of us started to work together as the publications team. Nine weeks in, we had a theme for our first booklet: Lost Buildings of West Lancashire. In other words, a building of local historical interest or significance that no longer exists, or maybe does still exist but is no longer in a habitable condition or simply isn't used for its original purpose. We began to find that we were aiming for a beginner's guide to various locations on the ODFHS map. Nothing deep or academic, more here's a short guide to historically interesting places in and around Ormskirk that might inspire you to find out more for yourself. And with 16 ancient townships on our map, we might be looking at anywhere between Scarisbrick in the west, Skelmersdale in the east, Hesketh with Beaconsall in the north, or Mabull and Melling in the south. And even at an early stage, we were already considering practical details. How many buildings would we be able to fit into one booklet? How many pages would we actually need to fill once we've included acknowledgements, introductions, a contents page? Would we include a contents page? Should we try to confine ourselves to a set word count for each section, or should things be a bit more flexible? We could already see that we would be working as authors, editors, proofreaders, designers over the coming months. We also knew we had a deadline, and we were hoping to work with a local artist, Angie Thompson, who would provide the illustrations, so of course we needed some ideas for those that weren't too technical or complicated. Where would things go next? In our original project brief, one really important detail was that our SpaceHive booklets should be visually appealing. We wanted something that people would want to pick up and read. And at the 18-week mark on the 15th of January 2024, the prototype Lost Buildings booklet was still not much more than a rough draft, but already an overall look and theme was beginning to develop. We shared out the pages so that everyone could review the contents and also pick out spelling and punctuation errors. As the Society's magazine editor, I know how easy it is to make typing mistakes. With the Sharing People's History of West Lancashire project, no such thing as too many proofreaders in this case. We also began to think about our audience. What would they want to know? Lost buildings is a subject that might naturally make you ask, what is on the site today? So we realised that modern photos would have their place too, whether they showed remnants of a building that was still there, land that has gone back to nature, or maybe a site that has completely redeveloped. Things were slowly starting to take shape, and actually at a much faster pace than we expected. By week 27, the Lost Buildings booklet was essentially ready. With only a few minor changes to be made, our attention started to turn towards the second book. What would publication 2 be about? Various ideas were suggested, but once again, one very rough idea stood out. We were drawn to landmarks of West Lancashire. Similar, but not quite the same. Here, we could make a distinction. Where lost buildings are obviously those that no longer exist, landmarks would explore historic features of West Lancashire that can still be seen today. On the 18th of March 2024, our progress meeting resulted in a short list of 22 potential landmarks. The problem was, we knew we only had 24 pages in our booklet. We had to be very ruthless when we cut down that list of 22 places. We needed it to be something more manageable. But on the positive side, one of our publication team did comment that assembling the rough draft had taught them how to use all sorts of features of Microsoft Publisher that they'd never tried before. This was turning out to be an educational experience in so many different ways. A huge milestone came on the 15th of April 2024 when the proof copy of the Lost Buildings booklet was finally ready. As everyone knows, no matter how hard you try, there is always one little typing error or spelling mistake that only jumps out after the final copies are done. And our eagle-eyed team were very keen to make sure this did not happen with the Lost Buildings booklet. So we had a very detailed discussion about punctuation. Should the Working Men's Institute have an apostrophe? Should we correct a quote from an old edition of the Ormskirk Advertiser which didn't give it an apostrophe? How do we know that wasn't actually a typesetting error that the newspaper knew about at the time and couldn't change because paper had already gone to print? Then on the 8th of May, our librarian collected 250 copies of the completed booklet. Absolutely beautifully illustrated and with plenty of time to spare before the launch event, which will take place at Ormskirk Library on the 10th of June. And this also meant that we had a display copy on hand to show to the public at the Ormskirk Medieval Weekend. In the meantime, we were still drafting the contents of the Landmarks of West Lancashire booklet, sourcing the pictures, checking the references, and because we're a family history society, trying to tell those stories in a way that lets us investigate the people who built them and why. Did they serve a purpose for a particular period in history and then became redundant? Were they actually the forerunner of a building or landmark that still exists today? Naturally, it is impossible to speed up the research process, but in some ways the second booklet has been a little more straightforward, because our writers now know how many pages are available. We're mindful of the need to allow room for pictures and illustrations. We're thinking about the chance that longer articles might need to be cropped and edited so that each story is told in a cohesive way that will engage readers and hopefully they will find them absorbing. I know that everyone involved in creating these Sharing People's History of West Lancashire booklets has really enjoyed being able to share the ideas and, more importantly, use their knowledge to select the very best resources from our research library to tell the stories contained in each one. And although every section of each booklet is anonymous, I can tell you that the story of each landmark or each lost building has been written by someone who has a particular interest in that topic or that theme, and it's fair to say that a lot of unofficial background research was done before we even started. We just hadn't realised it at the time, and we are really looking forward to seeing where things go from here.